cool.
Yeah, we do that all the time. Like The Town.
Don't.
If you just overlook major plot holes, this is a decent movie. Yeah, so don't act like we don't do that either.
Welcome to the What's Up Verdict podcast. We fashion ourselves cinematic judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-host, Mattson.
Better read than dead.
And Javier Ortiz.
What is up, my nerds?
We appreciate your help growing the podcast by hitting that follow or subscribe button. Tell a friend about us. Please go and give us a review, either Apple Podcasts. You can give reviews now on Spotify, which is really awesome. Podchaser, those are three big ones where you can leave us a review. We'd love a 5-star from you, but any review will do for us, helps us grow the podcast no matter what. And as always, more than anything, we appreciate you listening. You can also check out our website, whatsupverdict.com. You can listen to all of our episodes there. You can also sign up for our newsletter for exclusive content. A lot of fun stuff. We'd love to have you interact with us as well. The question we always ask each week is if we find yourself wondering if we spend the time, money, or both on a movie. To help with that question, we put a movie on trial, discuss the facts, pass judgment, and let you know our verdict. Today we're reviewing The Kingsman. It was released December 22nd, 2021. It was written by Matthew Vaughn and Carl Gadusik. It was directed by Matthew Vaughn. Stars Ralph Fiennes, Gemma Arterton, Harris Dickinson. I don't know why I have a hard time with that guy's name. Jaimin Honsu, Tom Hollander, Reese Ifans, Daniel Bruhl, Charles Dance, and Matthew Good. In the early years of the 20th century, the Kingsman Agency is formed to stand against the cabal plotting a war to wipe out millions. If you haven't seen this movie and you want to avoid spoilers, jump over and check out a spoiler-free review to see if you should watch this movie. It's over on YouTube. Links in our show notes. Pause the podcast now. If you want to avoid them, go watch the movie. Come back, pick up where you left off, because we're about to spoil the shit out of this thing. So, let's dive deep. I won't lie, Javier, to touch on what you said in the spoiler-free. It started off in a way that made me optimistic, right? Because there was the big sniper reveal, and this kid watched his mom get shot, and we now have motivation for a good chunk of this movie.
That scene does beg the big question of why is a Duke and his family personally delivering Red Cross supplies in an active war zone? So, if you overlook that scene was awesome.
I feel like that's going to be the theme of this review.
Absolutely.
If you overlook that, then this is really cool.
Yeah, we do that all the time. Like The Town.
Don't.
If you just overlook major plot holes, this is a decent movie. Yeah, so don't act like we don't do that either.
Huge difference between one, what you would call plot hole, major plot hole, and the whole movie being a giant plot hole.
It's just because you don't understand World War I history, JJ. That's got to be it. Because that was accurate to a T.
Sure. Yeah. Good God. Anyway, yeah, it started off good because it was like death and violence and giant knives into a dude's back and little kids run into their mom who just got shot.
Yeah, everything that you want in a movie.
Until that scene was over. And then
what are you talking about?
Dude, it's slowed down to a crawl. I've now got to watch this dude in his
we hate slow movies now? Is that
I hate slow movies. I hate slow movies in a franchise that are known from going from start to finish.
Oh, okay. Well, that sounds like managing your expectations wrong.
Sure, fine, whatever, except for they set expectations with 2 movies and then completely go outside of those expectations. Like, I'm fine with you varying it a little bit, but when you go from a set of 2 movies that are action-packed and crazy storyline from start to finish to that's this exposition-filled, emotional, trying to understand. I don't need to understand. Look, dude's mom died. Dad's afraid of his kid dying. That's all I need to know.
Took him an hour to get through telling us that happened. Like,
that probably dragged on a little bit, but the first one also had buildup. It's not like we jumped right into it because we had to be introduced to the character and introduced to the little secret organization, and then he had to go through his training, and then it became action-y. So it's not like it was from start to finish either.
No, but there was like 10 minutes in, you meet this kid, there's a fist fight, then there's a bar fight. That's one of the coolest fucking bar fights with a goddamn umbrella I've ever seen. Yeah. Dude's hugging beer steins with the hook of his umbrella. Come on, dude. That shit's bitching. And then it just continued. Like I'm saying, there was enough exposition surrounded by action scenes and cool shit that I was okay with the exposition. And that's what you need. You got to, for example, a movie like, what was that stupid thing with Matt Damon called?
Martian.
No, the dude from Oklahoma that we reviewed.
Stillwater. Yeah.
Like, that's a movie that's mostly exposition and character driven and storyline. It's slow if you think about it from that perspective, but it's interesting and everything mattered. All the relationships matter. This is a type of movie I don't care that much about the relationships.
Sure. Yeah. Like, I get where you're coming from as far as I'm watching this movie for a Kingsman, violent, like the story doesn't have to be in depth. Like, I get all that. And, you know, like, sure, they tried something new and it didn't work. But I would argue that they still had a lot of the original Kingsman-esque stuff in there, like the violence and the monk, the perverted monk. That was pretty Kingsman.
Sure, there were moments of flashes of Kingsman, but I just was so lost after. And I think if they had jumped into that a little earlier, but they have this scene where mom dies and they set the stage for how this is all going to play out. And then it takes forever to get to Rasputin being a pervert and licking a weird scar and doing, which was like, once it happened, like, I was sitting in the theater going, what the fuck is going on? This is hilariously weird. And then all of a sudden, when it all goes down and you realize why they had to have that scene so that Ralph Fiennes' character could actually be a badass again, I was like, oh my God, that was lazy as fuck. Like,
I don't know why they did that. Like, because you can get shot in the leg and still walk. Like, they could have just made it that, like, he was super rich and he went to the best surgeon in the world, right? And fixed his leg. I don't know why they went through all that.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is here's the core of my problem with this movie that I couldn't say in the spoiler free because it'll spoil some shit. And that is they went through the first hour and 25, 30 minutes of this movie setting you up that it was going to be his kid and him that were in the Kingsman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so to do that, they have to make dad lame. He has to have a problem that you go, oh, he can't be part of the Kingsman because he's not jumping over fucking moving shit and he's not fucking jumping out of planes and he's not doing crazy shit because
he is jumping out of planes, baby.
because of his leg. But then they healed him and I laughed as soon as they healed his leg. I was like, motherfucker, they're going to murder this kid. Like, I knew because now he's able to be the Billy Badass. And now he needs the motivation to do it. And I will give you, what a very Kingsman thing to do, to have this kid be the hero, save this dude, get this thing back, and then another British soldier shot him in the head. I like that part too.
I love it when things go that way. And when he got shot, I was like, okay, how are we going to bring this guy back? He just got shot in the head. I don't know how you bring someone back for that. And then like 20 minutes in, I was like, oh, this guy doesn't come back. Oh, great. I am so conditioned by Marvel to believe that like when people die, they don't actually die, that it is shocking to me when writers have the balls to kill one of their main characters and not bring them back.
Can we go back to the Russian spiritual doctor, whatever? And how did he heal the guy's leg with his tongue?
He licked it.
No idea.
You think we have an answer to that, dude? Come on.
Nobody's got an answer to that.
No one's got it.
Matthew Vaughn, the writer, doesn't have an answer to that.
I'm just curious why they chose that way to show that his leg got healed. If they're trying to be like decently realistic in this universe, I'm like, well, there's so many other ways you could have explained this away. I don't know. That was confusing to me. But it was also very Kingsman-y to have some sexual tension in the room. And so it seemed like that's what they wanted to go for. I mean, that was very Kingsman to me. I'm not complaining about it. I was just like, oh, it's a weird choice of the way to do it. But that whole fighting scene, what happened in there, I was like, all right, that's Kingsman.
Yeah.
That was awesome. That whole weird Russian dance ballet fight scene, that was sick.
Well, so here's this is funny. We talked about this before in movies too. Like, if you want to watch this movie, just watch the trailers. Because all of the Kingsman-y parts of this movie are in the trailers. And all the cool shit is that, because like you said, the opening scene with the mom, that part's kind of in the trailer a little bit real quick. And then the war, like what you're talking about, Javier, minus the violence, the whole setup in the trenches and that crazy shit is in the trailer. The whole dancing Russian thing is in the trailer. The thing at the end on top of the big fucking rock at the barn is in the trailer. So all of the very Kingsman-y parts of this movie that are actually really fun to watch are in this movie. It's everything else that I was like, fuck, I hate this.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, right? Like, my biggest criticisms are, considering they have so much build-up time, they don't do a lot of build-up of why the son wants to go to war so badly. And I think they're trying to paint it as like everyone's going, right? And so he's just being peer pressured into going, I guess. But then we're talking about like, what a great kid, what a great man he is. I'm like, great men don't get peer pressured into doing stuff, right? Yeah. So I'm like, I needed a better reason why this kid wanted to go to war. And it would have made more sense if like, I don't know what war was going on when the mom got shot. But it would have made sense if he was like, my mom was killed by a German, so I'm going to go fuck up some Germans. I'll be like, yeah, sounds great. My other thing is like the ending of the movie, like the last third of it just got so weirdly convoluted. I'm like, what is happening right now? Like the US president was being blackmailed and the big bad evil guy was a Scottish dude that we had met earlier who somehow got off a boat before he got torpedoed. And it turns out he was the one who torpedoed. Like, it was just like this weird mix of, I'm like, and the reason why I overlooked that part was because in the first movie, the plan made no sense either. Sure. I was like, okay, whatever. So that's the reason why I overlooked that.
Well, and I had no problem with the weird villain reveal because I called that, like, as soon as Matthew Good showed up and started talking to the kid in the Kingsman tailor shop, I was like, oh, Matthew Good's going to be the villain because he plays a lot of villains. And then, so I mean, curse my movie watching shit because I saw him and I was like, he's 90% of the time a villain. Mm-hmm. So he's probably going to be the bad guy. And then they would never show his face like as the villain. They just showed the back of his head. And so I was just like, okay, it'll be a big reveal. I mean, it's one of those things that they kind of try to do in that movie, but they telegraphed it so bad to me anyway.
Yeah,
that I was like, whatever. Not that it hugely bothered me, but it was kind of clunky the way that they did that with the twist. Like, I feel like they were just trying to be what they've been in previous movies, so over the top in places. Like you said, Javier, the whole storyline with the US president and like this weird underlying thing with all of the cousins that are the czar I was like, what the hell is going on right now? And don't get me wrong, like some of it was pretty funny. Like Tom Hollander, the actor that plays all three of those characters, King George and the czar and then the whatever, those guys, he's a hilarious, I love him as an actor. Like he's really funny. So watching like the German dude, like just be a complete child, like the way he played him was really funny, but it was so strange. But that's the other thing that I didn't love is the other two movies were standalone. They weren't based in history. This one, they had to tie in like Ferdinand, like all of these things that led up to World War I, and these three moron cousins being who they were. So there was a lot of all these things that they had to kind of play into that distracted me because they had to force that in there to tie it into World War I. So I just feel like they were trying too hard with this movie and it showed. And so I was so focusing so much on that and the fact that I was like, what are we doing? Like, where's the action? Why are we doing so much buildup to this in the middle that I was seriously frustrated?
I did find myself trying to recall World War I history way more than I would have liked in a Kingsman movie.
Yeah. Like, I was like, is that really how Ferdinand died? As he went down in the alley and someone shot him in the head?
I was like, he died in Austria, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought a lot of the same thing. It was. Yeah. In fact, I probably should go relook it up because now I don't know what to believe anymore. Kingsman has got me questioning.
Dude, I will say once we got the kid to the front, the Kingsman always has one scene that you're just like, that was absolutely batshit insane. That scene where they need to go recover the intel from that spy that got blown up, but apparently only lost a leg. Like, good for him.
Yeah, no shit.
Dude, that scene where they all agree, like, if we start shooting each other, then we're all dead because we're out in between two trenches. So they all put their guns down and bring out different weapons like knives and axes and hammers and then start creeping towards each other. That scene was crazy awesome. I am blown away by it. It doesn't compare to the church scene because the church scene is literally the most violent scene I've ever seen in a movie to date.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched it on YouTube the other day. After watching this one, I was like, I need to watch this scene again because, God, it's violent.
Wouldn't the hammers, though, if you hit someone with a hammer, I guess if you're just hitting human flesh and no armor, you'd probably be fine. It wouldn't be allowed, but...
Well, and they did make that point because he does hit something with the hammer when he misses and it rings. Yeah. It probably would have been way more noisy. You've got 10 dudes duking it out with each other. I mean, it also begs the question, what were the Germans doing there? Were they there to collect the intel too?
Right? Yeah, because they just happened to be out there walking around.
Yeah.
But no, that was a really cool scene. I really enjoyed that because it was very, like you say, it was very Kingsman-esque.
Oh, yeah.
The sheer volume of violence that was there.
I could have done without the mental breakdown of the son, though, because I'm like, I'm not watching this to see the realities of war. I'd watch Hacksaw Ridge. I'd watch Saving Private Ryan.
A war movie.
Yeah, I'm not watching Kingsman to see the psychological effects of war. Right?
Yeah.
We spend the whole half of the movie with this kid knife fighting his instructor and begging to go to war. And then he goes to war and knife fights someone and then he cries. I'm like, come on, dude.
Yeah. Well, and it just ties into that point that you're like, why does he want to go to war so bad? I think it could have been something easy because then they tried twice to bring that Latin phrase in that talks about it's heroic to die for your country or whatever the hell it is. It's honorable. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, if that's what you're going to use as his linchpin for deciding to go to war is that, all these other people are going to war and he feels it's his honor to go and try to fight and maybe die for his country, then introduce that Latin before he fucking dies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or before he gets to war, have that be something that he read in a letter from his mom or to his mom or, you know what I mean? Because then all of a sudden you have that tie-in why he's so passionate about going. And I'm like, yeah, that would have made more sense because it was just random until he got there. And then you're like, oh, he understands that it's an honor to fight and die for your country, but there was never any of that to this point. So I'm just trying to figure out why he wanted that.
This is also after they fight Rasputin, right? So he's already been exposed to violence. So if you're going to have such a negative reaction to violence, it should be when the dude almost kills your dad and then gets shot in the head.
Yeah.
I was trying to protect him. Another, I mean, I don't know, it's just movies, but the scene where towards the end when the father is scaling that giant cliff, it made me think of Mission Impossible because we know how Tom Cruise likes to scale tall rock faces. And this time, though, with how high up and how icy and how much older this individual was, it's just hard to suspend the suspension of belief that he would get up said cliff face, especially after he fell out of an airplane with the first ever parachutes and it all worked out and he landed just enough to be held. I don't know. That scene, I like the Kingsman because they go over the top, but that one was a little too much. He would have just dropped out of the sky and died. And they would have seen him coming because his plane was a hot freaking mess. And these people aren't deaf. They're up there. They're gonna see the plane. So to me, I think it was even more just a suspension of belief that they didn't know he was there. I'm pretty sure they would have been like, "Hey, what's happening in the sky? There's a lot of noise." Or I don't know. That was just a hard scene for me.
Yeah, I had no problem with that scene. I think for me it was because every time I'm watching this scene, going, "God, this is out there." But then I thought of part 2. When the kid's in the fucking taxis, speeding at high speeds through downtown London, and he jumps over the door and stays in sync with the car that's going 60 miles an hour. I'm like, oh, wait, he'd be 20 feet that way and the car would still be. So I was like, the ridiculousness in these movies, I can let that shit go.
Yeah, we can't say that's over the top and there should have been more Kingsmen, right?
Well, and I think for me, that's the juxtaposition for me, though, is I expect out of this world unbelievable shit like that. What I don't expect is this trying to be emotional, tie me to this kid that wants to fight in a war, and his dad who's trying to protect him. Like all of that emotional, serious movie shit, that to me is the part that I'm like, in a Kingsman movie, I have to suspend my disbelief that any of these people give any kind of shit about each other enough.
I thought there was going to be more jokes and more just like making fun of themselves and things, because that's what the Kingsman has been. But like you said, Jay, they took a very serious narrative approach, and then they didn't really have any jokes towards the middle end of this. I don't remember really laughing all that much because of humor they tried to give me. And that's, I think, where a lot of the luster of this movie was lost for me, that there was still some outlandish things like him falling out of the sky, basically, and having a sword duel and things like that. But one of the last funnier things to me towards the end of the movie was for lack of a better term, the maid that was also like part spy, when she was shooting her sniper rifle in that house of cheese and it was like all splattering on her. Like, that's a Kingsman thing. That was funny to me, but there wasn't a lot more to gravitate on, to laugh and to be like, like even the villain to me, while they made him over the top, but the previous villains to Kingsman just carried a lot more weight and felt like they belonged much more, comparatively speaking to this Scottish guy that he just seemed like a pissed off Scottish dude, but didn't provide a lot more of the humor that I expect from a Kingsman villain.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what Samuel L. Jackson in the first one, to me, one of the greatest villains.
It's the most ridiculous villain.
Because he's so oxymoronic that, like, it's just beautiful. Like, he's this dude that's trying to create an app that makes everybody hyper violent and kill everyone, but he can't stand violence.
I'm like, passes out at the sight of blood.
Like, what am I watching right now? And then this weird Scottish dude is just mad at British royalty because they have shit on Scotland for shut up.
Yeah. I'm like, when we say pissed off Scottish dude, that's just like redundant.
Welcome to Scotland.
He's just Scottish. He was tough though. Like,
sure.
I did like the part where he like kills his own goat in front of Rasputin. And Rasputin's like, never mind, I love turtle rings.
Yeah. Love tortoise. So funny. I mean, there were some moments, but yeah, I laughed my ass off at the goat headbutt too. Like, as he's trying to climb up this mountain, he gets to the top and the goat like headbutts the shit out of it. That shit made me laugh. But like, for the most part, like, it wasn't that funny in a lot of the places. And I think the funniest, like you say, Gemma Arterton, the Polly, she's the funniest character in the damn movie, because she just keeps walking in and shooting sons of bitches and going, why the fuck are you messing around with knives? Like, you idiots in your sword.
She does that from the beginning. They're training and she shoots a knife out of someone's house. Like, holy shit. Like, you gotta be careful.
That's what they do in the Kingsman War, because that I'd be like, good aim there. Glad you didn't shoot my hand.
Dude, the part when that dude runs to the counterweight at the cliff face and she shoots it and he just launches himself up and decapitates that dude with like a huge Bowie knife. I was like, that was insane. That was awesome. Yeah.
He's not willing to go out of a plane, but he's willing to be rocketed up a gigantic rock face. And
smaller margin. He's done it before. He hasn't jumped out of a plane before.
Yeah. I did laugh at the end of it when he's like, you'll take a bullet for me, but you won't jump out of an airplane for me.
That part annoyed me because he gets shot like in the shoulder arm and then he's just out of the fight. Right? Where literally in the beginning of the movie, we ask him the question, could you still fight someone with one arm? And he says, yes.
I forgot about that.
I thought that's what I thought we were going to call back to that. But no, he's just down for the count.
Yeah.
Pussy.
Yeah. Way too much emotion in this movie for me. Like, and to answer your question, Javier, that war that they were fighting in the beginning is the Second Boer War in South Africa.
Against Boers? Is it similar to the like ostrich fight in Australia? The Great Emu War?
No, it's spelled different. It's the BOER War. Yeah, apparently it was the British Empire versus two Boer republics, which were, I don't know, I guess they had colonies next to British colonies in South Africa.
It's stuff like this that reminds me that I don't give a flying fuck about the British and their history. You know?
I mean, if you think, I don't care about most contemporary countries that went down into like Africa and India and just did all their colonization. Colonization is not a good thing when you look back at history.
My favorite British history is when we freaking spanked them in our Revolutionary War.
Yeah. George Washington.
Like I shout out, and this is, we're not sponsored, but like colonization, I didn't really think about it because I'm an ignorant white dude that lives in America and just doesn't care or didn't care. But I started listening to this podcast called Behind the Bastards. Very interesting. It talks about all the bastards of the world and the shitty things that they did. And like colonization really fucked up the world.
Dude, it was brutal. Like we think of colonization as like, oh, we found this new land. Let's build a house. And it's like, we found this new land. Let's rape everyone who's here.
And stick them like, and they show it in the beginning of this movie. They walk by the concentration camp and he's like, the only reason we're winning this war is because of these concentration camps. And everybody associates concentration camps with World War II and Hitler. But oh no, he was really late to that party because that shit had been going on a long time.
True. We even started to do it here in the States with the Japanese after Pearl Harbor. Like that stuff started to happen.
We called those internment camps.
Yeah. Come on, Mattson.
Very different. Very different. I'm shaking my head no right now. Not different at all.
I mean, just look at the history of my people. If you were a redhead in medieval times and you weighed more than a feather, you were dead. Like, there's no winning. That wasn't colonization. That was just horrible math and understanding physics.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly paid to be white throughout a lot of European history, you know?
And by a lot, you mean all of it? Like,
yeah, by a lot, I mean all of it. Yes, that is what I mean.
Yeah, I wanted to like this movie more, like especially because let's talk about this one thing. The acting is really good. Like, look, Ralph Fiennes can act the shit out of it, dude. And Jaimin Honsu's great. Matthew Good's great. Gemma Arterton's great. Rhys Ifans, the guy that played the Russian, Rasputin is great. There's a lot of top-notch acting.
Is he the same guy from John Wick that plays the?
I don't think so.
No, wasn't that same guy? He looked like him.
He's not the token Russian guy.
I was wondering if he was the token Russian. Yeah.
Ironically, Rhys Ifans is. That's whatever. I thought that's who that was when I was watching the previews. Was going to be, and I can't think of that guy's name right off the top of my head. But no, it's Rhys Ifans. Rhys Ifans is actually British. I think he's Irish, but he was actually in Spider-Man, the third Spider-Man, and the second or first Amazing Spider-Man. He was the Lizard, Dr. Connors. That's Rhys Ifans.
I would be upset that they couldn't get an actual Russian, but I think Russians deserve to be, screwed out of movies.
Fair enough. Yeah, Rhys Ifans is extremely British. Like, so
extremely British.
Yeah, he's not Russian, but he's a really good actor. And he's really funny. So he did really well in this movie. But I was quite shocked when I saw Rhys Ifans popped up on the cast list. I was like, holy shit, that was Rhys Ifans. Are you kidding me? Fair enough. Yeah, I just didn't love this movie. I wanted to. There were parts that were really exciting, but most of it just took too long, or it was just so out of the norm for a Kingsman movie that I just didn't enjoy it. In fact, I was mad. I was happy for 5 minutes, and then I was really mad for like an hour. And then I had a moment of like, yeah, this is a great fight with that one in the no man's zone, the no man's land piece. And then I was like, oh, now I'm mad again. And then the last fight was fun, but it was just, I hope it's the last Kingsman movie they make, unless they go back to like the original format. It's
been a steady downhill, dude. Like they killed it with the first one. And then they're like, where do we take this? Yeah. I don't think they know why people liked that movie.
I don't know why I like that movie. Other than it's so different and entertaining. And you're right. They set themselves up for failure for anything coming after that, because it was like the perfect formula of what we haven't seen before and just not giving a shit about offending people and being out there.
And we loved the Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. It was like out there. There was another movie. Oh, Cop Shop. We're just like, this is weird and out there. And I love it.
Yep.
Movies that blow our expectations. But I think it's a classic example of Hollywood struggles to just make one movie. They always want to make the next movie because the first one did so well. Therefore, they know they'll get money to go do the next thing. And I think it's just a problem with cinema for us in general. Many movies that we love should probably only be made once.
Honestly, I would rather start seeing a movie and then like a TV series sequel.
Sure.
I think people would have better luck doing that.
Yeah. For me, the formula, I think what I would try, like if I was in Hollywood making movies, like I would try to make a movie like The Kingsman, because I'm interested about where did The Kingsman get started, right? How did we come up? And it was so, let me just talk about this since it came up. I hated the nonchalant one-line reason that they got for naming everyone after the Knights of the Round Table in this organization, because it was a thing that him and his mom talked about. Like his mom instilled in him the honorable shit from the Knights of the Round Table. I was like, that's it. That's where this came from.
Mm-hmm.
God damn it. Because that's what I wanted. I wanted to know that. But I think if they'd have made the first one and then, like you say, Javier, go to HBO Max and make any one of these streamers and make a 10-episode introduction to the Kingsman and make it outlandish and crazy, and this is how the Kingsman came to be, I think you can do a lot more with that.
I also think they should have gone farther back, because history from World War I to now is like not a lot of time to cover.
Yeah.
Right. But if they had gone back to like medieval times, that like with King George, and then we could have had like movies or TV series throughout the ages, Well,
and it would have made sense too for me, because I love that you bring up crazy King George, like not the King George in this movie, but actual crazy King George back in the medieval times at the end of the Dark Ages. Like that would have been a great reason to have the Kingsman be created, because King George was batshit crazy and didn't know how to run a country. So now you need this clandestine organization to make sure that England's staying okay.
And then the Knights of the Round Table could be real, right? Like they actually were the Knights of the Round Table and the myths were based off of them.
Yeah.
That would have been way cooler.
We should have sent that into Hollywood.
Here we go. Rewriting movies again.
Rewriting movies.
Hey, all you got to do is Days of Future Past, X-Men, just Kingsman will figure out a way to
or whatever that Marvel movie is where they go back in time and they fix all their problems too. Because it's literally the same thing, but we only shit on X-Men for some reason, even though Marvel copied them and did the exact same thing. But whatever.
It was just more offensive to me the way X-Men did it, but we're not here.
Yeah, because you got the Marvel dick in your mouth and I'm here to liberate you.
I don't. It's because X-Men actually did it first and it just pissed me off.
It's because all of the X-Men movies are bigger steaming piles of turd shit than this shit we watched and are reviewing right now. This coming from the guy who's enjoyed the last two Marvel movies he's watched.
Did you watch Spider-Man, Javier?
No, I haven't gotten around to it.
Dude, it's okay.
I told him I'll go watch it with him because it's good. I
can't imagine that I'm going to really enjoy that movie.
I think you would. I think you'd like it. I don't think you'd love it, but I think you'd like it. All right, so we ready to rate the Kingsman? I'll kick us off again. I hated this movie, and I know that it's getting judged. Like if I'd walked in not having seen, I still wouldn't have liked it, but I wouldn't have hated it as much as I do. Like if I hadn't seen the first one, I had expectations. Just like I've gone into with movies like this newest Matrix, I went in with shit expectations, and there were some decent parts to the movie, so I didn't hate it as much as everyone else. This one, I went in with very high expectations of at least a decent movie. Like I wasn't even looking for it to be as good as number 2, but I thought it would be more Kingsman than it was.
Dude, and I was the opposite. I went into Matrix with high expectations, and this one, I'm like, nothing, bought the floor. Like, there's no way this movie's going to be good.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, see, I went in thinking, because even the second one is not as good as the first as it was. Like, I was still entertained through most of it. This one, I wasn't. And I felt like they tried too hard to be a normal movie more than they were a Kingsman movie. And that frustrated me, because that's what I go to Kingsman movies for, the outlandish, ridiculous, doesn't make any sense, but they don't try to make it make sense. They just go in and have fun and throw violence and humor and crudeness in this. And it's just that kind of step outside of trying to be a serious, good movie. And I feel like they tried really hard to be a good movie in the expositional parts of this movie, in between the action. And it just didn't work for me. Yeah, like I said, I seriously thought about it. If we didn't have to review this, I would have left. Because I was so irritated most of this movie. With that, there were some good saving graces. When it was Kingsman-ish, it was very Kingsman-ish. There was really good action at parts in the movie, specifically the one on the battlefield and then the one at the end. And then the fight with Rasputin was really interesting after they got past the weird licking his leg thing. That part really kind of grossed me out. I'm not going to lie.
It was super disturbing.
It was super weird enough that I was like, what is happening right now? But yeah, God, I'm going to give it a 1.5.
What?
Yeah, I did not enjoy this at all. But the fact that Javier talked about some of the parts that I did enjoy and I got past that, I was going to score it much lower. But 1.5 is what I'm doing.
JJ, let me go next. Yeah. I'll be quick. We can let Javier raise our score up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it a 2. Honestly, I don't have a lot to add from what JJ already said. It's a movie franchise that, having talked about it a little bit more, there were pockets of Kingsman in this movie. Absolutely. I was just expecting it to be more outlandish throughout, less emotionally tied to realism of going through war and this family dichotomy. I just expected it to have a villain that just did crazy stuff and was funnier, I guess is what I was looking for there, comparatively speaking to old individuals. And then it just didn't feel outlandish to me. It just felt like it lost where and what it was trying to be overall. But again, there's pockets of it. I think if you're a fan of the Kingsman franchise, I think you will be disappointed. But if you're like a Javier that had super low expectations, maybe that alters where you stand and what you were looking at. But it just wasn't as fun to me. And I think that's what I come back to. I remember walking out just feeling, I was just bored and I was disappointed that I didn't have more opportunities to laugh and be like, what just happened? Like, you got to be kidding me. That was crazy. And I just didn't feel it. And that's, for me, what Kingsman is. And that's where I stand. So a 2, go stream it. I wouldn't say go see it in theaters. You're not missing much. Unless you have an AMC A-list and it's really not anything for you, then, go see everything.
Yeah. Not sponsored, by the way, even though I wish we were.
I wish we were, damn AMC. Love you.
But I don't think they can afford to sponsor anyone at this point. So and it's only getting worse. All right, Javier, bring us home on the Kingsman.
I don't think there's much more to say. I think we just disagree. Right? Like, I think I agree in the sense of it took too long to get to the point and it was a little convoluted getting there. And I preferred the first one 100%. But sure, this movie was fun. There was violence. There was some more violence. There's some weird Russian monk. People died. That's really all I came to expect from a Kingsman movie, So I'm going to give this a 3. I'd watch this again, but honestly, I'm kind of at the point where if I'm going to watch a Kingsman movie, I'll just watch the first one. So, yeah, I think that summarizes it. It's a 3. It's it's 3.
Yeah. I'm gonna wrap it up with, you brought up a point that I would just want to touch on before we go, and that is this took place during one of the bloodiest wars ever. Man, what they could have done with like a giant fucking World War I battle in the Kingsman universe. Like with this one of these guys just running through the middle of it, just shredding everyone. Like that would have been great. But
yeah, like one of the reasons why World War I was so bloody is because we hadn't figured out to dig our trenches in like zigzags and they were just straight lines. And so people would like run up to the side of a trench and then just mow people down, right? I wanted to see something like that.
Yeah.
I want to see someone with a light machine gun just fucking up a trench. Would have been great.
Yeah. Would have been great if the kid had like snuck into the German trench and just walked the line with some big ass fucking Kingsman gun, right? And just mowing people as he walked through it and then gets shot in the back at the end. Like that shit would have been Kingsman.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Yeah. All right. There it is. Some very varied scores. It just depends, I think, on your preference for this one. So there it is. Next week, Sing 2. Quite a contrast between movies here these weeks. But yeah,
I'm just going to jump ahead and say there's not enough violence in Sing 2. I could use a lot more killing.
Could have seen a koala bear capping a couple rhinos.
Yeah.
While they're singing a song. That could have been fun. Yeah, so Sing 2, check that out next week. Mattson, tell everybody where they can find us.
Look, if you don't love us enough already, come back for more. We're wherever good podcasts can be found. Just search What's Our Verdict. And if you want to know what's coming up next beyond what JJ was talking about, check us out at whatsourverdict.com. Come chime in, come leave some comments, get some merch, and also check us out on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, What's Our Verdict. We love that you all listen. Excited for the new year of 2022 and the good movies that are coming our way. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Mattson. All right. With that, as always, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Cinematic out.